It is June the 4th of 2016. We're at Oakwood Cemetery in Section 2, and we're looking at the drainage canal. We're on South Street, and you can see this is the, I'm standing on the bridge. This is where the drainage canal terminates and goes underground to the rest of the system. It's graded off here to protect people from falling in. There's a 40-inch hole, drainage culvert down in here. You can see over in this area here, looking to the east, that there's a lot of standing water over here. The drainage canal actually does have culverts throughout the cemetery, like this one, that take drainage off of areas and feed into the drainage system. But you can see here that over time, dirt on the road has kind of built this area up here, and this section doesn't drain well at all. We've had a lot of rain. Same thing for the road system here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start on the south end, and we're going to take photos along the way and look at the drainage canal. So again, this is the south grate. You can see that there's a culvert that takes runoff from this area here, but over time the road has been built up and this culvert is almost non-functional. Down in here, you can see that there's hopefully you can see that, there's a culvert right down through here that brings in the water maybe from over that way. And so getting the drainage system mapped out and get it to where the roads drain off is important. But it's also important to know that the erosion is actually encroaching in to grave sites. This is the Waller family. Part of Mr. Waller was one of the guys who helped map the city, and we've got Waller Creek and things like that, and you can actually see part of the footing here is being exposed, and we've got a big hole going on here, and this will eventually get bigger and bigger, and then you've got remains all through here. Now on this side, again, we're looking north. This is the west side of the channel. There's usually a 5-foot buffer, but you can see up in here people have encroached into that 5-foot buffer. When we come to the east side of the drainage canal, you can see that there are burials right up against the wall, and now the walls are leaning in, and so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when these walls fail. That's what needs to be addressed. Now we've moved up a few feet. You can see where the wall is separating right here, where it's actually kicking in. This is part of a newer section that was done, I think, in the 70s. We've got some documentation on this. But these older sections here, there's no weep holes in the bottom. And so not only do you have the weight of the soil, but when it's been wet like this, you have the water weight that is pushing on the walls. There's been several attempts to put braces in the walls, but you can see what happens is the brace has a relatively small footprint, and the rest of the wall will just move, and then the one section that the brace was onto just gave in. Now if we come down this way, you can see that this wall is leaning in quite a bit, and it's wet. We're going to come back later on and take some measurements so we can track the movement of the wall. You can see that there are burials right against the side here, and at some point when the wall moves, so did the markers, and there was something on top of this one at some point that most likely fell in and broke and was discarded. This appears to be okay here, but when we come down this way, we can see that the headstone is moving in toward the wall, because the wall is moving. Everything will move with it. For reference, this is the Radom lot here. We've come up about 100 and so feet, several hundred feet actually, up this way here. And you can see that this at one point was a straight line, but as the earth moves, the wall is being taken with it. You can see the the crack here. We come back here, and again, there's the Radom lot. You can see the separation in the wall. And again, these things don't have a whole lot of rebar in them. In fact, there's no rebar in this wall. It was done in lifts. This particular area here, you can see where they used the boards and just formed everything together. But again, here's the dynamic. You have graves that are buried. You have graves of people who are buried right up against this wall. So it's not as simple as just taking out the wall, shoring it up and redoing it. You may have to contend with older burials. This is from the 1960s, 1949, Mamie P. Miller. We're not sure when we started using concrete vaults. This is from 1888. Chances are there's no concrete vault here, and the casket is pretty much dissolved. So keeping in mind that you may have human remains that you have to deal with makes this a little bit more difficult than the average repair. All right, we've come up to Olivert Street. And again, with all of our streets here, we have a culvert system. You can see that helps direct water through. But they're not designed well because over time we've taken spoils and dumped them in our roads. This is Ferndale, and you can see when it gets wet, everything just washes out. Or we have big puddles of water, and so when people drive through, they will go onto the high spots, and then they drift onto the cemetery lots, and then that's when we get damage causing. Here we can see a recent repair where these culverts were fixed here when the older culverts broke out. And again, we're doing band-aid fixes, and we're not really addressing the issue. You can see the amount of washout from this area in through here. Again, this makes it a risk for somebody driving. They may not see this and drive off the side of that. Somebody stepping off. So besides being a structural issue, there are safety issues. Another example of a section of wall being supported, and that piece just broke, but the rest of the wall is moving out. And again, we're on the west side, just south of Olivert Street, looking toward the south end of the drainage canal. Oakwood Cemetery, June the 4th of 2016. I'm at Olivert Street, the first bridge up from the south end of the drainage canal. Just for a reference, here's the Caswell lot here. And so we're standing on a bridge. This section here is perhaps the worst section of the drainage canal. You can see where the walls have split. You can see the latest attempt to brace these walls. They took pipes and put a hinge type device on them. And they anchored them to the walls, stretched it as far as it would go, and then they welded to keep things from moving. But what's happening is as the wall collapses and falls inward, that hinge just moves. It eventually will snap those bolts. But these sections of this wall are just going to blow in and lay down flat. Again, on the east side here, you've got burials all the way up against the wall. On this side, we have about a 5-foot gap that gives us some room. Looking south, we had that same gap, but we had a couple of instances where people buried right up against to it. And again, that's just what we can see visibly. If we do any work in through here, we're going to have an archaeologist on site to manage remains and get them back after we repair the wall. So this section is from Olivert Street up to Main, and you can see that it has its share of issues. We do have some still photos of some of these things. There's a repair that was done up this way, where there was a big section that blew out and the city just formed it back in and did the band-aid fix on it. All right, this is the DM Boggle lot, and we're looking back this way, and you can see this repair that was done to replace the section that blew out and fell in. But you can see all the cracks through here. You can see how this wall has shifted, this curbing, and it's shifted exactly this much. It used to be tight and together, and you can see that everything is just moving inward. And again, the walls are just breaking apart in through here. Looking back toward the Olivert Street Bridge, you can see what's happening. For reference, this is the Charles M. Armstrong Celtic Cross here in the cemetery. And it is just west of the drainage canal. You can see again where the older style of brace has just blown the wall apart, and again no indication of any rebar in any of these sections. You can see on screen right how the wall has moved in quite a bit. That's evident when you can see here where the curbing is separating from its original location. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that west side wall just completely collapses in. Once that wall collapses in, there's nothing holding the east side wall up because the braces will have failed. We'll come up this way and shoot again. We're about 4 lots down from Main Street, and you can see just how far this wall has moved just on this side here by the curving that has been upheaved and rolled in this direction. Again, looking back toward Olivert Street, when we get up here to Main Street, you'll see that this is creating a big V. This wall is tilted way far in. We can see here it's almost full thickness. When they poured this thing, it looked like they did a tongue and groove, and they didn't use any rebar. And you can see what's happening here. The whole thing is leaning in. There are no weep holes. There are no any drainage of any kind in through here. You can see how the bracing is ultimately ineffective. It will just break apart the concrete wall in sections. This didn't have a good foot on it. At least the recent attempt gave it a good square footprint to try to put things together. And again, there's an old brace that's stuck in here toward the top, but you can see how the wall is just moving in. And then here we are on Main Street. We've just walked section 2 of the drainage canal. And you can see how the thing is coming in toward the top. The bottom seems to be staying, but the top is moving inward. All due to the fact that you have the weight of the soil, more especially when you have a lot of heavy rains that adds weight to that lateral wall, and it will just push it over. We look here and you can see again this is collapsing here. Now we do have some scuppers here, not scuppers, but some culverts here that are channeling water, and they're just coming in underneath this this bridge to the roadway. All right, that was section 2, part 2. It is June the 4th of 2016. We're at Oakwood Cemetery. This is section 3 of the drainage canal. We're starting off here at Main Street. We just covered the straight section that goes through section 2. The drainage canal has street culverts here that drop in and bring water through here, but the majority of the water that's coming through here is coming from the area above 19th Street, up by the university, through a neighborhood up that way. And so the problem is this wall is collapsing in several sections. You can see here the curbing. This was all done in 1924. None of it has any rebar in it. This was just patched because we started losing part of this. This is one of the 2 Congress Avenue footbridges that the master plan is talking about restoring. The footbridge part is fine. It's the handrails, it's the rustiness, it's the dissimilar railing system here. It appears that that rail there is at least consistent, although historic photos don't show a railing being used on Congress Avenue. So whatever we do for redoing this, it should be consistent. We had 4 of these on site, and 2 of them are in Zilker Park now, the Japanese garden. So let's take a look at the drainage canal in section 3. This canal zigzags quite a bit. You can see here that these walls are actually tapered out a little bit, that in some instances the family curbing on these lots comes up over a foot on these walls, and then you get up to this way where you start to see a major collapse in the wall. Let's walk up to this area. This mausoleum is lot 884 in section 3. And then there's a short lot here that is listed F.B. King, which is 884.5. When you look at the wall here, this is where we start having a problem at 884.5. Looking back toward Main Street, everything seems to be okay this way. But when we get to here, then we have a large section where it's more narrow than it is down south, but you can see that the wall is given in. You can see the distance that the wall is moving because of this brace, and you can see that that is right here. So one could measure from that pipe inward, and that'll tell you how this wall is being moving. Now this wall actually does have some weep holes down toward the bottom. They can be seen right here. So when somebody did this section, what they probably didn't do was backfill with any type of gravel or material that will drain out. And so you've got the lateral load of the soil and the water with very few braces across here, and then you're going to get movement. And again, I'm standing on the west bank, and there's a nice walk path here, but of course this, we can suspect that there's burials all across here. Part of the research that'll need to be happening is to go through each one of these lots and determine how many burials are on these lots. Just by looking at the numbers, we know that approximately 49% of the interments here in the cemetery do not have a monument. So it's probably safe to say that we have interments all the way through here, that some of the work that Save Austin Cemeteries will start to do is to get an inventory of who's where. So when we start addressing the issues, again, this section here does have weep holes. Kind of hard to see, but again, you have blowouts in the walls here where things moving in. You actually do have some rebar in this one. Again, here's the Hamilton lot here. That's going to be 898. James Clark, this is 911, section 3911. So this is 911 and a half right here at this blowout. Looking back, you can see the deformity in the wall and what's happening. All right, we're going to continue to walk down this way, and we'll pick up at our next point of interest. This is lot 939, and this is the Daughters of the Confederacy. This is North Street. We'll walk over here and take a photo in a minute. But you can see that for maintenance issues, you can see the height and elevation here from the original grade down to the drainage canal, and you can't mow this. It's conceivable that, and again, we've never documented in all of our research any injuries of somebody just walking into this thing and getting hurt, or of a maintenance worker on a mower losing traction and rolling a mower into this thing. This all has to be done by handwork. If this were raised and boxed in, then our risk to injury would be less, as well as our maintenance costs. Because right now someone's got to get over here with a weed eater on the slippery slope and try to maintain. So this is the United Daughters of the Confederacy, lot 939. This is North Street, running east and west, and Ferndale. So what you're seeing here is the intersection of Ferndale and North Street. You can see that the elevation, the slope here on the side of this drainage canal, makes this a hazard for mowers. They can only mow the flat spot, and then somebody has to come in by hand and use a weed eater to do this. Again, we've never documented any damage, any injuries from somebody falling into this thing, not paying attention, slipping or falling. That's not to say that it hasn't happened. And so boxing this in makes sense, so you can travel from one side to the other, and occasionally having some areas like perhaps right here close to a street where there would be a culvert, a lid for maintenance access. All right, so this is Ferndale, and the drainage canal basically goes in a straight line all the way down to 14th Street from here. But here, just south of North Street, it takes a zigzag. It comes underneath this one here. This is more of a cenotaph. I'm not sure that there's anybody buried in this lot, but they're buried elsewhere around the lot. And so this is North Street, and we're basically walking right on top of where that drainage canal is here. You can see that this had a bridge on it at one point, and it shifted. This has gone this way. Okay, we're at North Street, which is an east-west street, and that's Ferndale. The drainage canal comes underneath the road here, and then it goes up a little bit, and then it makes one last jog. So you can see that down in here we've got some of the old concrete barriers we'll see in a minute, and you can see that this needs some work here because people in traffic could miss this. At one point this had a handrail on it, but it doesn't anymore. If you look along this side, this is part of the Mills lot, you can actually see the lean on all the monuments. Everything is drifting in toward the wall. Charles Lonely right here, you can see that this is starting to go, the soil is finding its way out here, and this one is starting to move. So unless this is backfilled with sand, this will topple in and end up down in here. You can see the brace is blown out here. We're going to come up this way, and again we're in section 3 in Oakwood. 1, 2, this is the third one. So this is the fourth one up here. Let me give you a this is the Clune lot. Section 3, 1009, and this is 1010 here. For reference, there's the Lane Mausoleum right here. You can see that this is moving quite a bit. This curbing is separated here. You can see the water coming down through here, but you can see what is happening to the wall here. You can see the lift in the curbing here at the Norris lot. You can see how that's come up and it's moving this way. The whole wall is collapsing inward. And again, this is 1009, 1010. And you can see the wall is separating here. Okay, looking back at the section we just walked, you can see here that, and I've got photos of this in the past where this was opened up and we've just added more concrete to it. You can see how the wall is moving here. Left side of your screen, which would be the east side of the drainage canal, from about 1010 all the way up, is drastically moving. Looking back over this way, you can see George and Alma Milton. You can see the separation here, but you can see what's happening right here. At some point, this is just going to fall in. This is one of those sections that was built on top of the wall, and it's moving with the wall. I don't know if it's pinned or not, but you can see what's happening. All right, we're in section 3. This is the north side. This road here is not named. This again is going to be Ferndale right here. Let me see. So this is Ferndale Street right here. The drainage canal starts wherever that pickup truck is. You can see my white pickup truck center screen. The drainage canal is over that way. It comes up, it zigzags, it goes over this way, and then it makes one last zigzag here, just east of Ferndale. It comes underneath this roadway here, and at some point this should be inspected because we have a lot of big heavy trucks coming across here and we have no idea what this looks like, even though it's capped on the top. Now in this section here, you'll start to see some of the old original bracing. They used concrete across the top, but it just kicks itself out. Here's an example of one. This is the last section of the drainage canal. Looking northward, there's the university. This is Ferndale Street over here. The last jog comes underneath this area and comes here this way. Here you can see some of the original concrete braces that were put in, but you can see they have a curve on them and they're not pinned in any way. So when the wall started to move, the brace would just be pushed up and fall out. And then this was probably the second generation, this pipe here, and then the things with the pivot is going to be the third generation. Here we can come up here and we're going to go up about 3 lots, and we're going to see that there's a big push in the wall right here. I'm standing on the southwest corner of lot 1096, looking west, and you can see the damage to this wall right here. You can see the big split. This is lot 1097 here. This is the west side. So the west side wall, you can see that it has given way and is poked in. This brace here has popped up and is no longer supporting it. That brace is holding it, but the top is kicked outward, but the bottom is kicking inward. Very clear here. You can see this part of the old section was done with a corrugated metal as a form. And it's like this. This appears to be a water line that is coming across the cemetery here. We'll have to look at the water line maps. In any event, when this thing gives loose, if this were to give loose, it's going to cost a lot of money before it's discovered. I don't know if it comes from that hydrant there. One of the short-term fixes could be to dig this up and disconnect it on both sides to prevent a break, and then possibly a huge water bill and a big washout of the soil around it. All right. Being very careful to stand. You can see that this comes up through here. We're going to come across the bridge. We'll take a look at the entrance point to the cemetery, and then we'll be done with our review. This is lot 1134 in section 3. You can see it's all pretty level across here, but look at the northwest corner. We're going to walk across this way, and you can see what's happening right here by the wall. And it starts right here with this row. You can see that there's a gap around these headstones, and then you step down into a hole, and you can see what's happening here. We're starting to lose the material underneath, opening up that wall. This is the original grade up here. We've dropped about 12 inches of soil. The headstones are falling down in here, and everything's being lost because I'm guessing this thing has weep holes. That's the west side. We'll walk around and look, but we're slowly losing material through these drain holes. This is going to be lot 1163. We were at 1134. This is 1163, and it's very evident that the same thing is happening right here. You've got a big hole coming in this way. This wall is coming out, and you can add all the concrete you want, but it's not going to stop this from happening. We have internments up here, but that's not to say that when this wall goes, all of the internments are going to start sliding this direction. And if we lose this section, you can see this big tree doesn't help, and of course we just lost a big branch here. But that's why trees are really never a good idea in cemeteries. You can see what the tree roots are doing to this thing here. And again, there's one of the old braces, and this is a grate to keep people from wandering back off the other direction. It normally has to be cleaned off several times a year for plastic bags and debris to get washed in from culverts over here by the university. So we're on the west side. You can see how much this wall is kicked out. This wall is kicked out quite a bit on the bottom, and they put in some cement to kind of keep it together. They put a pin down here, but this whole thing is moving. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when these sections collapse and the cemetery crews come to work and figure out that something is, graves have washed down Remains have been floated down the thing and have disappeared underneath 14th Street to be gone forever. The city's been known, the city it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The city was made aware of this through a notice of defect provided to the city by myself. So the city knows there's a problem. If the city fails to fix the problem within a reasonable amount of time, and a family has a loss because the city failed to fix the problem, then the city is absolutely liable for lawsuit. The city management works on the presumption of, until we're sued, we're not going to spend the money of doing it because we've got other projects we want to do. This is going to be a capital improvement project. It's an engineering project. Let's start today, and hopefully within 3 to 5 years we have some solutions.